Welcome to the Erskine Music Show. I'm glad that you guys are tuning in today. Man, I just be in the background just dancing along and prancing and doing all the machinations to get this show started. Hopefully you guys, I think I'm going to air this on Tuesday. So if this is a Tuesday edition for you guys, man, plug in. It's going to be a wild ride today. I love this topic and I love the fact that we get a chance to share some time together. Woo, man. The comment section is turned on. I may not be live, but I'm hopefully still alive. Oh, wouldn't that be weird if we did a show and like I wasn't alive, but it was like a broadcast that I had pre-recorded? Oh, weird science. Oh, we hadn't even gotten there yet, but I mean, I think that warrants. I just thought of that, by the way. So that warrants this.
That's weird.
By the way, if you've never seen the show before, that probably happens a lot on this show, a lot more than I actually press that button. So we actually have a segment that's dedicated to That's Weird, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. Let me introduce myself. My name is Erskine of Erskine Music. I'm the president and CEO of Absolutely Nothing. But we do Erskine Music over here. We do it in a variety of ways. We write pop, country, hip hop, R&B, ballad, soul, shows, and music in EDM. And we have a lot of fun doing that. Get a chance to work with some wonderful partners. Oh, by the way, look what I'm rocking out here. At the time when this is airing and broadcasting, I will be in East Tennessee. And so these are some of the folks that I will be with. This is the Baptist Collegiate Ministry at East Tennessee State University. Represent what's going on, my Buccaneers. Going to be loving spending some time with you guys here very soon. And for the rest of you guys who are in the world, in various places and in various stations, keep that energy. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep serving Christ. This is a show about life, culture, and art. And so we'd like to thank our various guests who join us here. Those of you who are joining us via, well, you like this motion, via Facebook Live, thank you so much for tuning in. I always love the interaction with the Facebook Live crew. You guys keep me accountable and you guys keep me with my hand on the censorship button so that I don't say anything weird. Well, no, I'm going to say something weird, just anything inappropriately weird. So thank you so much for that. For those of you who are tuning in on the YouTube audience, it tends to be a little bit international. I love that. Keep that energy. Keep giving that love from all over the globe. And we'll keep giving you guys some content. That's what we do. 1 hour a day. That's all we ask. I have these talents that are on loan from God, and I like to use them and distribute them as broadly as I possibly can. So worldwide in our efforts, worldwide in the shows that we play and do different things. Hey, this is being broadcast to the uttermost parts of the earth and maybe into outer space somewhere. So if you're on a space station somewhere, if you're up in the sky, if you're on a mission to Mars and you got a little bit extra time, skip past all those other podcasts and live streams. Check this one out. 1 hour a day, Earth Day. That would mean 24 hours. And yeah, we go at it. And for those of you who are watching on Twitch, man, I love that audience there because you guys are gamers. I love gamers that are out there. Don't get a chance to play enough games because, we kind of got to do stuff. We're going to talk about work today. Somebody's got to work around here because I'm clearly not. And we're going to try to keep it that way. All right. So powered by none other than the Holy Spirit on this show. And I want to give a bunch of shouts out to a bunch of people. But hey, the comment section is turned on. I will probably be watching this or in some case interacting before or after the show. So even though this is pre-recorded, the content is going to be fire. We're bringing it to you. And like I said before, I'll say it again. This is a show that is dedicated to all the people who are out there who are trying to figure out, hey, what do I do that makes an impact in the world? And what can I do for Christ that's going to make an impact for eternity? And so that's this show, and that's Erskine Music, and that's what it is that we get a chance to do each day and each time that we come together. And with that, we shall punch another button and try to completely annoy you with all the different sounds. I have this little sound card thing that I got going on over here, but it is so fun because I find new sounds every day, and I'm like, ooh, I'm just going to sit here and play with that sound. The electric shot, I know that's probably annoying to you guys, but just think about it. Okay, you done thinking about it? All right, here we go. All right, so here's what we got to do. We always got to get into the scriptures, whether I have somebody come on and do a devotion for us or have somebody come on and bring a word. I'm reading from the brown floppy Bible. And if you've watched this show before, you guys know that I have a black floppy Bible that one of the pastors, Pastor Bob Mashburn of Ferris Baptist Fellowship, give a shout out, gave me. This is another Bible that I ordered after I lost my Bible in India. Wasn't too heartbroken by that. It was my favorite Bible. But I figure in India, if somebody found it, cab driver or whoever was taking us around, and they started reading it, then God bless them for that. All right, we're in John chapter 9 today. Grab your Bibles. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. We ain't got no time for all that. All right, so we're in John chapter 9 today. Listen to what it says. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so that the power of God could be seen in him. Ooh, and he about to do it up in this thing. Um, we must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming. Then no one can work. And then verse 5. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus would go on to heal this man, and then there would be a controversy that ensues. One of the funniest passages of scripture, I think, as the Pharisees are trying to give an account of what's going on here with this man who was born blind, and the disciples are trying to come to a new realization of this. The parents get involved in this. The Pharisees get shamed. Jesus comes across glorious in all of this, and it's just a funny cross section of all the different things that are going on in our world, even today, as Jesus continues to wake up our spiritual deadness and to bring people to life. There's some people who are just kind of passing by that and have sort of a glancing thought about Jesus in the midst of that. And then there's some people who just completely say, we recognize, eyes open, he is the light of the world. And in the midst of that, incredible, the disciples are coming to varying levels of understanding who Jesus is. So it is today that there would be varying levels and different expressions of people understanding who Christ is. And I pray that that would be the case today as we begin to jump into some of these topics. All right, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Hey, did you guys know that I'm getting ready to do a country album? I know I just released, or I'm by the time this airs, on the heels of releasing an album that is a dance EDM kind of remix album. A lot of fun. That's one of the genres. Hey, when you get Erskine music, you get it all. All right. So there'll be some hip hop coming in the future. There'll be some country music, but I'm wanting to kind of focus and exercise my country chops because I be gotten them country chops. I be doing that country stuff. I would say probably I'm 9 out of 10 more country than some of the country artists that are out there, based on some of my farming experience. And so, yes, there is going to be a song about Texas, and there is going to be a truck in some song. That's pretty much the prerequisite in a couple of chords. All right, so here's a couple of facts. We got a segment that we call "That's Weird." It really should say that I'm weird, but yeah, we'll go with the facts for right now. If you keep watching the show, an hour a day is what we ask. If you watch the show for an hour a day, you'll already know I'm weird. But here's a segment called
That's weird.
Interesting Fact that I learned today. I don't know if you knew this, but the folds in a chef's hat, there how many actually, let me ask you guys a question. Did you already know this? How many folds are there in a chef's hat? All those little folds that go all the way around the hat. How many are there? Have you tried to count that before? It's a specified number. There are, say it quickly. You'll get credit. You'll get credit if you say it quickly. If not, I'm moving on. Oh, there are approximately 100 folds in a chef's hat. Does anyone know what those 100 folds represent in the chef's hat? I mean, if it's a legit hat, I'm not talking about the ones you get off the black market or bootleg off of some B-Bay or whatever you can get it from. I'm talking about the actual chef's hats that have 100 different folds in there. What does that represent? Anyone know? Anyone? 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 You only get credit if you say the answer before I say it. It represents the 100 different ways to cook an egg. Did you know that? Yes. Pleated white hats of chefs, technically called a toque, has 100 folds. According to the Reluctant Gourmet, the pleats used to signify the chef's level of experience, like the number of ways that he or she knows how to prepare an egg. And so I guess it could vary in different ways. All right, good to know. Good to know. Here's another fun fact. I found this. Girl, you doing too much. Do you know the longest wedding veil in history? The Guinness World Book of Records records this. Anyone want to guess? Football field long? Maybe 2 football fields long? I don't know. How many football fields? let's just measure this in football fields. American football fields, 100 yards. How many football fields long is the train of this young lady's dress, wedding dress? She's doing it. All right, here's what we got. Say the answer. Say the answer. Quickly, quickly. Dial in, dial in, dial in, dial in, dial in, dial in. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer. Nope. It's closed. You don't know. It was nearly 23,000 feet, which is the same as about 63 and a half football fields. It's true. It's true. Who is this lady? There's a woman. They didn't even name her name, but she's in the Guinness World Book of Records. I guess we can look this up. Who is from Cyprus. And she records the longest wedding veil that is out there ever. And maybe ever shall be. Or probably ever needs to be. Probably the majority of the wedding was trying to figure out how to get the train of her robe into a particular place. All right. You guys like apple pie? Did you guys... Come on. This is a good American. We need to play like a... Here's a fact that you may not have known. The American apple pie is not American at all. Actually, the next time that you call something as American as apple pie, well, that's not exactly right. In fact, you might want to consider that fact that neither pies nor apples originally came from America. American and apple pie. Apples are, in fact, native to, you got it, Asia. And his first recorded recipe of apple pie was actually written in, you got it, England. So those were the facts for the day. That we could go on and we could go on, but I just have to say,
That's weird.
Quick shout out before the show ends. Wanted to get to our subscribers today. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Enable the notifications so that you can get caught up with the show. All right, so we're back to it. Let's get to the topics for the day. Take this job, bitch. All right, the Great Resignation is what we are talking about today. Man. Put the show notes up for you so that you guys see the article that comes from NPR. Fairly well written there. Why are so many Americans leaving the workforce? Another article by the Washington Post that I'll be reading some from called The Great Resignation and How It Has Gone Global. And then I wanted to talk about a theology of work, and I put a link up there to give you the full articles so that you can go back and you can say, hey, Erskine, you did a good job on that, or you didn't quite read that correctly, or whatever you want to do. But I just want to put some information there so that you know I'm not just making stuff up. We're here an hour a day. We're here talking about various things throughout the course of the day. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm completely out of order here. It's the Erskine Music. I was so ready to jump into the topics today that I didn't do the music in the music show. Take this job and shove it. After that, there could only be one song.
What you gonna do? What you gonna say? Is it time to run or is it time to stay? Is there anyone or anything that would take all you got to get everything? Your heart's pumping, no stopping, like a tidal wave that keeps coming. You're running and running for something, yeah, yeah. You're gonna make it some way, somehow. No one's gonna keep you down when you know what you're supposed to do. Then go do what you gotta do. Some way, somehow. I know you can turn it around when you know what you're supposed to do. Then go do what you gotta do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do what you gotta do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do what you gotta do. gotta do.
Forgot to add myself to the stream. I'm back here in the back having a party up in this thing. Party. I'm up here dancing and singing and trying to figure out if I can match the guy that's on the radio. Oh man, get that guy, get that guy. I know the words of this song. Don't you love it when there's a song that comes on or in your playlist and you're like, I know every word of this song. I know every inflection of this song. Yeah, that would be that song. Do what you got to do. So let's jump into it. We got topics for the day. The Great Resignation. I kind of put that up there a little bit early. Jump the gun because I'm like, this is the Erskine Music Show, but we mostly deal with topics for the day. Give you guys a little bit of music, give you guys a little bit of reprieve from some of the harshness of some of the topics. But 1 hour today, we're controlling minds, we're controlling hearts, doing it through music and doing it through a variety of different means. So let's get to it. The Great Resignation, as it is known and as has been referred to in the month of this recording, it is October. And so this has also been called Striketober because there have been so many people who have left the job market and have reshuffled sort of the deck in the work and job market. We're going to talk about that today because everybody in the culture has recognized this and has begun talking about this. Why is this phenomenon beginning to take place? I want to add some biblical insights to it, give us a little theology of work, try to encourage all of us in the process, but also try to challenge all of us in the process as well. You guys know that Erskine Music Show exists as, I think, as far as I know, unless there's somebody going to come in my house and put me in a straitjacket, which that's very likely the case. Anyway, pretty uncancelable show. My record label is, well, my record label, Respark Music, and the associates that I work with there, Erskine Music is Erskine Music. And so thanks for all the participation and partners that I have. You see Holter International up there on the sign. You see Fellowship of Christian Athletes. There's Don and Steve. They're a wonderful show. And then Life Action. Love partnering with those guys. And yet we get an opportunity independently to work with various groups around the world and around the country who have gospel purposes in mind so that we can strengthen ministry, we can engage the culture, and we can create impactful art. And that's sort of the tagline of everything that we do. So as we come to this subject related to the job market, I wanted us to think about the whole idea of, are we doing what God has called us to do? Because I think that in the silver lining of all of this, I'll just kind of put that out there. I'll plant those seeds out there very early in the show. If we're doing what God has called us to do, we have nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. You know, guys know that another tagline for this show is, I'm trying to get people in this world, especially Christians in the Western context, to chill the hell out because there's so much chaos and so much frantic and frenetic activity that's out there. We should not be party to that type of manipulation because we know whether the political party be conservative or whether it be progressive, ultimately God is in control. Whether the situation be a good economy or weak economy, ultimately God is in control. And so we can rest and have a peace that surpasses all understanding that guards our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So let's get started. Topic for the day, the Great Resignation. According to NPR, a report that has been recently written as about 3 or 4 days ago, workers, and I'll just read a little bit from the article that's there. It's in the link, show notes for today. Workers have been giving their bosses an earful, such as, take the job in, shove it. They didn't put that in the article. I'm editorializing. Sorry. Words as of late last week, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that 4.3 million Americans, or 2.9% of the entire workforce, quit their jobs in August. That was a record-breaking month, piggybacking on the previous record-breaking months leading up to that. What is known as the Great Resignation is actually a real phenomenon and a fact that we can look at. It can be seen across virtually all industries. And so probably the place where you may have recognized that the most is if you've gone to eat some places, you see the now hiring or shortened hours at some of the restaurants that you may eat at because of a lack of laborers that are there. Okay, so that's what we've got there, but it spans across all industries. It's common to see a sign or a surge in quitting when a job market is tight and there's a cornucopia of open positions. But what happens when but what's happening now is unlike anything that we've seen before. Economists actually and pollsters are still investigating what's going on, and our generous government benefits encouraging people to quit. You know, there's that side of the discussion, which we could get into today. And maybe that's the opinion or view of some of the people that are out there that maybe explains everything that's out there, but I don't think it explains everything. In fact, the NPR article goes on to say this maybe, but some suggest not. Are people angling for a raise after decades of stagnant pay? Possibly, probably, yeah. The family pressures imposed by closed schools, the closing and reopening of businesses, the reshuffling of population to different locations and industries, the fear of the virus and face to face settings have all almost certainly played a role in what is going on currently. So it's a contributing factors. It is, as we like to say, the perfect storm. But the historic rise in quitting also seems to be more than this. And this is where I wanted to introduce into this NPR article. It gets a little bit wonky because obviously it's not written with a biblical worldview, but I want you to see if you can pick up what's going on here as they say, okay, well, obviously virus, pandemic, schools, closures, reshuffling the deck, virtual working, government incentives, all those different things. Those are contributing factors. But then they say, well, maybe there's something that's underlying condition of all of this that they want to get to. In a new working paper, the UC Berkeley economist, uh, and I'll say her name incorrectly on purpose. No, I'm doing the best that I can. Ulrike Malmendier. I'm going to just say Ulrike Malmendier. If that's not how you say your name, I do apologize. I tried to say it as classy as I possibly could. I know a lot of times my last name is Anavatarte, and so when people couldn't say my name correctly, they would just default to a very Spanish or Latin pronunciation. It is French Dominican of the name Enivitarte, and that's not really how you say it, but I respect people who at least try to put some flavor with that stuff. Flavor. But if you're watching this, Mrs. or Miss Malmendier, don't be mad at me.
Oh!
I'm sorry. All right. She suggests that there is something existential behind the great resignation. Here we go, baby. The pandemic and the rise of remote work have changed the way that we view our lives in the world, she says. She goes on to say, the idea that our experiences shape our choices is hardly radical. And Malmendier isn't alone among scholars in suggesting that a soul searching is taking place during the pandemic and helps explain why this phenomenon of quitting or the great resignation has actually occurred. I love this. Texas A&M psychologist Anthony Klotz, who predicted and coined the term great resignation in May, credits pandemic epiphanies with moving many workers and details in their jobs for greener pastures. Excuse me. Didn't want to do that in your face. But experienced effects, as Malmendier calls them, remain remarkably under investigation, which tends to be more focused on cold material incentives than the influence that influences our behavior. In other words, they're saying there's all these factors that are going on, but there is some existential thing that's going on. There's something deep within our psyches. There's something within the creative genesis of how God has made us that has made us restless until we find our rest in the. No, they didn't say all that. Sorry, I got a little carried away. I'll continue. There is, however, a new behavior. It is known in the field as use-dependent brain development. Here's where they get a little wonky, but that's okay. I'm going to read what it is that they have to say so that you guys know that I'm not just making stuff up on their behalf. I wanted to give them the ability to say what it is that they're going to say, and then I'm going to come back in. And obviously, you know this, the Erskine Music Show, so I'm going to say whatever the heck I want to say in this show. But they use this term called use-dependent brain development. And so they're trying to explain this urge, this inner longing based on some kind of brain enhanced development triggering thing that's happening with a lot of people. Here's what they say. Research shows that this is especially true for kids. Childhood trauma, for instance, can profoundly affect have effect upon people's outcome as adults. That's tried and true, so we understand that. This includes putting them at great risk of substance abuse, criminal behavior, antisocial behavior, depression, dropping out of school, childhood problems, and the like. One recent study found this laundry list of problems includes greater financial strain. In short, experiences, whether personal or collective, seem highly relevant when studying inequality, poverty, and economy. Kind of went off track there, but still pretty good writing, Malmendier. As for the effects of the pandemic, Malmendier says it predicts the legacy of forced teleworking, homeschooling, and other dramatic social and economic changes will continue to shape our choices long after the virtual danger recedes. At the very least, there will certainly be many of us working new jobs. Here's where they're kind of landing the plane. with some of this article, and I'll read some more of it here in just a second. But you know, trauma. We've all kind of experienced a sort of trauma in the sense that our life was going along, and then all of a sudden, bam! Oh, wait a minute. Why would I do that when I have?
Oh!
All of a sudden, we had those kind of things happen to us, shutdowns, dramatic changes in schooling. If you have kids, dramatic changing. If you're not already homeschooling, we homeschool, and so I think maybe the reason why I'm on the Chill the Hell Out campaign is because I probably was affected least of anybody um, by the pandemic because I'm used to going through periods where I have a month or so where I don't really make that much money because I'm coming off of a tour, I'm getting ready for another tour, and it's kind of a month in between. And so we have stockpiled some stuff from the tour before, and we know how to kind of budget until we get to another place. And so that's kind of the ebb and flow in the music world. If you didn't know that before, like, rarely are there those people who are touring every month out of the year. So if you think about it, there's generally peak seasons where it's more beneficial to tour, summer months coming back into school, but then sometimes kind of there's a lull. Sort of around the first of the year, there's a lull until about mid-January. And so don't travel much during those times. So you kind of reason there's going to be about 2, possibly 3 very lean months out there. So you just kind of budget and you just kind of do what it is that you need to do. Having said that, when we got to the pandemic, I just finished my longest domestic tour. And so I was in a pretty okay financial position, knowing that, we can go maybe a month or so before we need to figure some things out. That's kind of the genesis and the birth of the Erskine Music Show. You guys are here because the pandemic caused me to say, well, I don't virtually do anything on social media, nothing. I post something every once in a while. I have no video representation of myself. I don't like to make videos. I don't really spend time doing this because I'm playing so many actual shows that I'm in front of real live people. And for me, with limited space, limited capacity, and limited time, if I can be in front of real people making real progress, seeing God change real lives as a result of that, then all the social media stuff, that'll take care of itself. And so I never prioritized that until I was like, I can't get in front of real people, but I still have a lot of content that I want to push out. And I don't love writing like that. And like I wouldn't mind doing a PhD, but I don't love writing like that. But I do talk a lot, as you can see. And so the Erskine Music Show was born out of that season. I say all that just simply to say that as we experience trauma, there's various levels of people experiencing trauma. There are those who are, especially in the music industry, had big tours, big places that were canceled, off the schedule, gone, no more, nada. Even Toby Mac, your boy, had a hard time paying his band because they were not doing shows. And there's that massive influx of income that they need to be able to distribute those to the people that they were interacting with. And so different people have been affected different ways. But Malmindier is essentially saying in this article that the level of trauma that we've experienced has created a type of anxiety within us that has caused us to say, wait a minute, let's do some soul searching. Let's evaluate what really is top priority. And we see this happening in the church to some degree. We've seen it happening in the culture. For the church, hopefully that will mean that we will refine our discipleship strategies and discipleship methods, that we will engage more in prayer. Hopefully it means that we'll be nicer to one another. Y'all killing me out there. Twitter. Oh my goodness. What are you guys doing on Twitter? You guys are mean as fire. But at any rate, sorry, little blip there. Somebody's calling me. Hey. But anyway, I wanted to just simply say that we've experienced all those different things, and it has at least given people pause to say, what really is the point of me driving through traffic, sitting in traffic, being road raged, getting to a job where my boss or coworkers are complete tools, spending an inordinate amount of time with those idiots, and then at the end of the day coming home extremely tired and then trying to give the rest of my energy and devoted thinking to my family as I ebb away into a pattern of sleep that probably is not very proficient, so that I can get up the next day and do the same thing again, hoping and praying that we can finally make it to Friday so that there might be some reprise and opportunity to rest, only launched into a weekend where there's frenetic activity built upon the massive letdown of Sunday that leads us back to no Monday fun day. So people are beginning to rethink that and saying, wait a minute, We were productive and working when we were at home doing our thing. At home doing our thing. And so we can do the work at home. Why you want to come? Wait a minute. This ain't, nah, I ain't doing that. And a host of other reasons as people have experienced trauma. But here's my point. Here's the point. Here's the point that I wanted to say here, that pressure and problems are not always bad. Did you get that? Are here's something that I've been telling my kids. I've been telling people, if you've been around the Erskine music world, if you've been around me recently, pressure and problems are not always bad. Pressure and problems can bust a pipe, but pressure and problems can also bring people together in ways that they've never have before. Um, living witness, living testimony to that. Um, Pressure and problems have brought my wife and I together in ways, profound ways, that we would not have otherwise been able to come together. Pressure and problems have brought new, innovative, creative solutions to problems that we would have never thought of before. Pressure and problems gives birth to this show. Pressure and problems gives birth to new ways of going about doing social media marketing, influencers, YouTubers that are out there, people who are doing this now for a living, people who are making six figures. Never before would I have imagined 8 years ago that I could play less shows and make significantly more while still getting music out there to people that will impact their lives and hopefully impact their eternity. That just wasn't a thought in my mind, because the only gatekeeper that was there that would create the potential of that happening was, in fact, record labels and the music industry. And as I found out very quickly, even though I appreciate what it is they're doing, like I'm hearing that the music industry is making a dramatic rebound and that people are anxious and hungry to get back out there. I love that. Keep that energy, because when that water comes up, then all the boats rise. We all benefit from that. And so I'm in no way, shape, form, or fashion. Don't come away. You can come away saying a lot of different things about this show, but don't come away from this show talking about Erskine being a hater of the music industry, especially the Christian music industry. I don't do what they do. And so for me, I started looking at that going, just it's too much time away from family, too many restrictions. I got a big mouth. I'm going to talk about issues related to race and ethnicity. I'm going to talk about issues related to our society. I'm going to be a little bit more in line with, or a lot of bit more in line with the Bible when it comes to pro-life issues. Going to apologize not one iota in relationship to any of that. The LG, I don't even know. Whatever community that is I appreciate and I love people and who are part of that community. But yeah, biblically, human flourishing, our best identity comes when we have the identity of who God is. We know God, we'll know ourselves. We don't start with ourselves so that we can know God. And that's how this whole thing got cattywampus. The Dolphins agree with that. Big Head, what do you think about that? Big Head agrees with that. Ruby and Scooby, they're in the back. Oh.
An idiot.
All right. So anyway, say all that to just simply say that problems and pressure has created innovation and opportunity. And I think for a lot of people, if you go outside of even the context of having a church discussion, are having that same, yes, you guys are making some comments about that. Well, maybe you're not. I'm just envisioning that there's comments that are probably pouring in at this point. I'm not here live to receive them, but thank you so much for your comments. Keep that energy. Keep them coming. But people who are beginning to think through their lives and to think through the discussion piece of their lives and say, wait a minute, I'm going to evaluate and see where the priorities genuinely lie. And I think that's a good thing. That's not always bad. It has left some employers in a lurch trying to figure out how they continue to conduct their business. But at the same time, it has created possibilities and opportunities that there were not there before. So let me continue on. That was absolutely the wrong button. We shall continue. All right. So this is what Malmendier says in her article. For the average worker in the developed Western economy, there are reasons for encouragement. She struck that bell. The truth is that people in the 1960s and 1970s quit their jobs more often than they have in the past 20 years, and the economy was better off for it. Oh, look at that historical note. wrote Thompson in The Atlantic. Since the 1980s, Americans have quit less, and many have clung to crappy jobs for fear that the safety net wouldn't support them while they look for a new one. But Americans seem to be done with sticking it out, and they're being rewarded for their lack of patience. Wages for low income workers are rising at the fastest rate since the Great Recession. For the average worker in the developed Western economy, there are reasons for encouragement. Uh, like I just said there. Oh, sorry. Come on. Get up to the top of the screen there. So here's the deal. They are also saying in the world that this is not necessarily a bad thing when you have a reshuffling of the deck, when you have people who are searching, generally trying to find meaningful work. And I would submit this. I'm just going to put this into the show at this point, that whether you're a believer or a non-believer, there is a certain angst within us that causes us to ask ourselves the question, not just about what my identity is, but what am I on this globe for? Like, what purpose do I serve? Am I just a random pile of molecules doing random things until a terminus time exists, and then I'll go to some random existence in the ground, or be biodegradable at some point and then recycled into bird poop? Like, people genuinely are wanting to ask that question and find a better, more sufficient answer than what evolution gives people, in the understanding of that we came from primordial sludge and we were struck by lightning or seeded by aliens or all the different nonsensical things that evolutionary hypothesis and theory says. And so what is cool about this article, I believe, is that it gives us the imprint of the imago Dei, the image of God that is in man, human dignity, and human dignity, as we will talk about a little bit later on in this particular episode, terminates itself, or at least finds grounding in the whole notion of the dignity of work. And that is a biblical notion that I think across the board, even though people are not using that terminology and having that discussion, the biblical notion of the dignity of work that is created to the image of God, that we are valuable as human beings created in the image of our Creator, is one that I think bears out some discussion. Now, the Dolphins know that in addition to that, which should be inherently positive for everybody that's out there, that should cause us to go, okay, even though things are changing, we're in a good place. Here's where I want to be, maybe a little bit edgy, controversial as the okay. So here's where I'm going to be a little bit of an idiot, and a little bit controversial. I think, and here's my commentary on this. This is not from the article. Mel Mendier, you done your thing. Okay, thanks for serving the show. Hopefully, I read your article correctly, but I think I did. Other people who contributed from the Atlantic, Thompson and others, who thank you for your contribution. You're off the show now. Goodbye. This is Erskine's show. All right, so here's the deal. I hope that this resignation fever hits the church full fledged, and it pierces the church culture as well. Why do I say that? Because I have a little button that lets me say controversial things and then press the button. That was one reason. But no, the real reason why I say that is that I hope that this controversy, if you will, this phenomenon pierces the church culture as well. Why do I say that? It's because there are some, and here's my hedge, there are some church ministry jobs that absolutely SUCK. They SUCK. Ministry folks who have a industry professional model of ministry. And why do I make those terms um, an issue on this show? You guys know, and at least you should know if you watch this show, that I'm a house church planter. I'm a house church missionary. And so my vision, our vision, if we could share that with you, is that we would plant churches in Nashville, house churches in Nashville, and to the ends of the earth for the glory of King Jesus. Like, that's what we do. That's what we're attempting to do. And so a lot of the overhead that comes from the professional model, legacy model, if you will, of church ministry is get a building, get a mortgage. Hopefully you're not in debt, pay for your land, pay for your utilities, create a house that people can come into, create a stage and a performance there. That's not my role. That's not how I see or read the Bible, especially the New Testament. But that is a model that we have in the Western context. And like, in fact, if you were to ask anybody, hey, do you go to church? They would think immediately, what building do you go into? And so I'm not quibbling with that. And I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's led to some tremendous things and tremendous opportunities, spaces for people to gather, worship, all of the like. I'm not criticizing that on this particular show. What I'm simply saying is when you have a church building that now needs people who work in the church, in the janitorial staff, people who are doing the maintenance staff, people who are doing lawn care and gardening, people who are doing a variety of different things. Oh, yeah. And if you put a school in there and if you put other things that are associated with that building or that entity, all of a sudden you then have you've manufactured, you're like a factory of workers employing people. That's great. But some of those jobs are so crappy because church budgets invariably run a little bit skinny in some of those places. For instance, when my wife taught at a Christian school, she was a science teacher, she was a PE teacher, she was a track coach, she was a basketball coach, she was a Bible teacher, she was a health teacher, she was a da 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 da. That should be a new song. And some ministries run on a very thin budget. And so competency compared to the world pays Christian teachers this much, Christian schools pay Christian teachers this much. The world values people who do lawn care and gardening and maintenance at this level. Sometimes the church values them at this level because those budgets are a bit thin. And so if the world can say, wait a minute, these are really hard jobs. These are jobs that require a lot of time and a lot of attention. And so we need to be paid and compensated accurately and appropriately for the work that we are doing. I think that people in the context of the church, without it being a manipulative situation, those who are actually being underpaid and undervalued in the church should come forward and say, we love the Lord, but we don't want to work for this kind of pay. I think there needs to be an evaluation across the board. And I know that a lot of ministries are just like, hey, giving was down. Maybe some churches going to have to close their doors. I'm actually okay with that. I think we could do with less churches and a little bit more gospel and ministry. That's another subject for another day. But I think that churches need to get this as well from some of those workers that are probably being taken advantage of by the church and lowballed by the church. Do you think about all the construction workers that are out there and people who hire cheap labor, just take one for the team, man. Do it for the Lord. Don't you love the Lord and don't you want to donate your services to the church? I cannot tell you how annoying that is as an entrepreneur and as an independent Christian music artist. How many people think you just need to take one for the team? Like the Lord will take care of you. We love you, man. Erskine, you have blessed our church. You have ministered. And in one particular situation I can think of, I shall not say names. That'll get real messy on this show. Came in early. Bang. Nobody was even awake at that time. Got everything set up, dealt with all the technological issues, came in, led some worship, preached the message, went out to lunch with the leadership, came back to the church, had all my stuff out there. Hey, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to help you pack up. Oh, man, that was great. I have not seen our people respond like that before. Man, you had them going up in that thing. You done ministered well up in our congregation. Brother, God bless you. I hope you come back sometime. Thanks. Deuces, I guess. All right. So my wife, Jasmine, Justin, and our little dog, Harriet, what they going to do about all that? I'm glad that I can tell my wife, man, the pastor said I did a really great job today and ministered well. Nah, man, y'all gonna have to compensate. Compensation, I think, is part of this conversation. I just did that on the fly. Compensation. Here, let's do it. 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 I can put this in the show. Compensation. I'm gonna figure out if I can spell or not. I'll just say compensation and conversation. There is a sense in which Jesus was a servant, and if you're not willing to be a servant leader and serve people, then that's an issue. That's a hard issue. But what I'm saying is, from the standpoint of a leader, I don't want to come on the show and tell me if you've been in a band of mine and you've played with me or you've done a gig with me and you thought that I underpaid you. I don't do that. In fact, the truth be told, there's sometimes when I'll dip into my pocket and take a loss so the people who are coming with me to aid me in what it is that they're doing can be paid fairly. And I've just kind of said, you know what? If they're not being paid fair, this is what I would want to receive if I was doing what they were doing. And I know what it is that they're doing because I've had to do what it is that they're doing. Travel, take time away, prepare, get myself ready, show up, be present in the moment, be excellent at what it is that I'm doing. And so I want to try to compensate people commensurate with that. And I hope that that reaches the church as well, and that we begin to compensate people accurately and adequately for what it is that they are doing to serve the Lord Jesus Christ. And when we have them in a state where we are employing them, hopefully some of them will, if necessary, rise up and saying, this really isn't adequate compensation. In the political spectrum, and I'm going to get real messy here real quick, but in the political spectrum, we who are conservatives have a lot to say about a government policy or government policies that tend to keep people in a state of flux and keep people dependent upon the government, because although you raise their level from being absolutely abjectly in poverty, you don't raise their level up enough so that they can be independent of the government and get beyond the resources that the government can provide, beginning to provide accountability and resources for themselves. If we can formulate that kind of thinking related to our culture and our society, why does the church not think about that as well? If we're employing people at only such a level that they continue to need to be prayed for, well, we just need to pray for so and so. Oh, they're having some financial struggles. Let's just pray for them. No, let's actually make it possible for them to do what it is that they need to do. And maybe that means they need to not work with you, you cheapskate. All right, Dolphins. What do you think about that one? All right, so service is not the issue. I'll put this in my notes. Accesses to prayer and word ministry should be acknowledged. Okay, yeah. So I'm reading my notes here. And I don't even know what I wrote here. This is why I don't love writing. I love talking about it, but I just needed something to jog my memory. Here's another point. Where are we at? 53 minutes. Oh, man. All right, so we're gonna try to get through this subject. It'll be hard. Maybe we do a part 1 and a part 2 of this. This is talk show gold for me, because I'm really passionate about this issue, because work as an entrepreneur is extremely important to me. I will not work at a sucky church. I just will not. I think that valuing the team, valuing the people's hearts who serve the Lord, and listen, I'm all about this whole thing of let's reach people for Jesus. Let's get past some of this nonsensical stuff that we're in, and let's stop fighting each other. Because to me, if you're on Twitter and you're fighting people, I'm gonna tell you what I really think about people who are on Twitter fighting against other people. I think that ultimately you're a coward and you're hiding behind your words, because you'll say things on Twitter that you wouldn't actually say to another human being if you were standing in their presence. But you get all sorts of keyboard confident, and you start ripping on people, and you start ripping on their ministry, and you start ripping on their ideas, and you start, get that big mouth going. Ooh, you got that keyboard mouth going. Oh, you bad. But all of a sudden, if you were actually in their presence, you wouldn't say a lick of what it is that you're saying, because you would know yourself that you have struggled along to get where you're at today. And there's probably been a lot of people who have helped you or supported you or done what it is you're doing. So I am super passionate about this issue of work, because I don't like the tenor of people who either resign and just say, resign to the fact of, this is what I'm always going to do. I don't have any upward mobility. I'm just resigned to this sort of class of living. And here, I'll say it on this show. The reason why I'm doing the Erskine Music Show is so I can say things like this. I think that by and large, this happens a lot in minority communities, Black communities. Happens in Black communities where there's a mentality that, hey, we're stuck. Unless it's basketball, unless it's sports of some sorts, unless it's music fame, and some of those other credentials that traditionally have gotten people out of those type of scenarios and out of those communities and out of that type of poverty and out of that type of government dependence, then it's typically been a struggle in some of those communities to overcome the mindset that, hey, I can take the resources that I have around me. I don't have to be a rapper and I can take the resources that I have around me and make something of my life and make something as of a legacy that will last beyond my life and then touch other generations. Um, and so I wanted to go ahead and put that out there. I'm super passionate about entrepreneurship. Like I want to do it and I want to do it well. And I want to do it to such a degree that at some point I'm making six figures and able to pass some things by way of knowledge, tools, technology, and resources to other people to help them get out of where it is that they're at and to get onto the things that God has called them to. Listen, I'm so thankful for the supporters of this show. You can't do what it is that I'm doing without people supporting the efforts that are here. And in fact, when the Erskine Music Show was terrible, and my son even came and said, "This is the worst show that I've ever heard." When it started out on episode 1, 2, and 3, those were the worst episodes. I had no idea what to do with technology. I had no idea to do with the camera, lighting. Those were all things that I just had. There was nothing there for that. But as the show has progressed, and there's been people who've said, "Hey, here's a hundo, or here's this, or new camera, new this, invest this in the show." And I started investing those things in the show. Things got better, figuring out how to have guests on, where to look, how to manufacture content for, um, and coalesce content for the show. Like I'm hoping to make six figures doing this, and I'm not apologizing for that because I've got work in Africa that I can get done. Now that I have the freedom to do it, I would have work in India that I can get done and have the freedom, the time, the mobility to be able to do it. Kingdom gospel ministry. Seek first the kingdom of God. And I believe entrepreneurship is a key to that. Anyway, this is not about that, but we are talking about work and the Great Recession today. Where's that icon? I put something in the show, and I don't ever think I put it up on the show. Compensation and conversation that we are having related to the Great Resignation. All right, let me go on here because I got 2 minutes, literally sucked up my time on that little rant that I was on. Okay. Here's what I want to do. That last bit that I was talking about in the 1960s and 1970s, that was actually from the Washington Post. That article is up there in its entirety. It's a great article. You should read that as well. But I wanted to get to a theology of work, and I don't have time to talk about it in its fullest effort here. And so maybe I'll do a part 1 Tuesday of this week, and then part 2 maybe Tuesday of the following week, and then take on another topic. I try to put 2 topics in here, but I can't really do 2 topics in an hour, especially with music and other things that are going on there. And I do want to play music on the Erskine Music Show. It seems counterintuitive not to. But here's really quickly, put a link there for Got Questions. Don't love everything, but I do like a lot of things that they're doing. If we want to be critical of something, be critical of ourselves. And the fact that I haven't written anything on the theology of work that's as good as this. And so I'm going to shut my pie hole and just read what it is that they've written because I think they did a good job. God bless them. They say in the link that I put in the show notes, the origin of work is depicted in the book of Genesis. In a passage, God is the primary worker, busy with the creation of the world in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 15. The Bible states that God worked for 6 days and rested on the 7th day. The passage then reveals that God was the first to do work on the earth. Therefore, it is legitimate work, and it reflects the activity of God. Well said. Because God is inherently good, work is also inherently good. Check the stats. Get the Bible. I'm beating up the microphone right now. Check the stats. Check it out. Psalm 25:8, Ephesians 4:28. Further, Genesis 1:31 declares that when God viewed the fruit of his labor, he called it, you know what it says, put it on the screen, put it in the notes. He called it very good. God exclaimed and assessed the quality of his work, and then he determined that he had done a good job. He took pleasure in the outcome, and by his example, is imperative that work should be productive work, and it should be conducted in a way that produces the highest quality outcome. The reward for work is honor and satisfaction that comes from a job that is well done. In Psalm 119, God reveals himself to the world by his work. Through natural revelation, God's existence is made known to every person on the earth. And that's why we can wrap up this story that we have with the Great Resignation and say there's some mentalities that are going on in the world with what we have in the Bible. Let me hit my teleprompter here. Thus, work reveals something about the one doing the work. Oh, we're going to have to spend some more time. The way that you work, your enjoyment of what it is that you're doing says something innately about who you are. I'm coming back to it. I'm sorry. I just decided there's going to have to be a part 2 of this. Whew, it exposes underlying character, motivation, skills, abilities, personality traits. Jesus echoed this principle in Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20, when he declared that bad trees produce only bad fruit. Good trees produce only good fruit. Listen, in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 7, it says this. He indicated that God was created for his own glory. In I can't do this. Hey, Dolphins, we're going to have to stop. We're at an hour and 1 minute, and it is the Erskine Music Show, and I can't even finish the show. I thought when I looked at the time and I was like, oh, we're 20 minutes in, get the song in, they'll give me 40 minutes. I can't do this in 40 minutes. This is way too important and way too important a topic for me to just deal with in 40 minutes. So I'm going to have to take some extra time because I want to talk about the character behind the worker. And that is an important discussion that we can have, and we can twist and meld and bend that all sorts of ways, because it says something about you if you don't want to work. It says something about you if you don't want to work. Whew. But it also says something, let me get on the other side of that, about the kind of work that you want to do. Come on. Erskine Music Show. We out. Thank you for your comments today. Charge it to the game. If I said anything that was good out there, it was from Christ. If I said anything that was bad out there, it was obviously from me. So here, subscribe to this. Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. Erskine Music Show. We out of here. Here's Yoda real quick. That's funny. It's the Erskine Music Show. See you guys later.